And this is to show how to do some kind of special forms for ceilings that are not just planar. First thing to do was to establish a reference plane where you want to draw the sketch for the ceiling. What I'm doing here is I'm going to draw a barrel-shaped ceiling inside the space. If I pick the reference plane, I typically want to name it according to what I'm going to use it for. For barrel ceiling. It's also useful to have an actual section that's looking straight onto the view of the plane that I'm going to draft on, which is drawing on the plane of this reference plane. If you then say that you're setting where you're drafting, so this is to set the work plane where you're actually going to work, you'll see that because I named it, I can now pick reference plane for barrel ceiling. If I'm not in a view that's going to let me draft on it, Revit is going to offer me a alternative view. So the reason I drew the section is so that I can pick that section there, and I'd be here looking directly towards that reference plane. I'm going to drag that up a bit. That's just the outline of my building on the second floor. That's like a viewport, or really in Revit it's called a crop region. I just made it so I can see the inside of the building. If I want, under the architecture tab, I can click on show so that I can see the actual plane that I'm drafting on. Also, if I wanted, I could pick the plane and I could change the spacing, say I set it to 1 foot. And I could even do things like say, align. Let's modify. A line to the underside of the ceiling, that line on the grid, and to the face of the wall, that line on the 1 foot grid. So I could use those to snap to points if I wanted to do that in my project, or I could just draft it and be precise about what I'm drafting. So underneath architecture, component, but the option that says model in place. This is meant as a last resort inside a project. I'll talk more later about how you might want to do this in a generic model family and then bring it into a project, but this is one-off things, typically things like a fireplace, or in this case a barrel-shaped ceiling. You tell it what category of information it is. This is so it knows to report on it if I do a ceiling schedule. So it's a ceiling, whatever I want to call it. I'll call it barrel ceiling. And then I'm ready to draft. So I've got these form creating commands. Do an extrusion, do a revolve, do a blend between two shapes, do a sweep, do a swept blend between two different forms. And you've got the same thing for creating voids. So when you wanted to take material away, you could use a void. The one I did was the extrusion. I'm going to say here, create an arc that goes from, say, 1 foot down through the middle of my ceiling there to the other end. Oops, I didn't draw that very well. I chose the wrong command. It's this one I want. Start, end, and then center. That's what I was trying to do, not I just got the order wrong. There's the outline of the arc, but I need to have a closed shape, so what I'm going to do is say offset by whatever value I want. Let me make it say 2 inches, and then offset in a downward direction. And I need to, like I say, create a closed shape. So what I'm going to do is draw, I'm going to go right to the end of the wall there, draw a line, and then trim, TR, to pick, click, click, click to close that end. Same thing over here, a line that's coming down against the face of the wall, escape, escape, TR, trim, that with that. By default, what it does on the browser here is it says, okay, that's on the reference plane called for barrel ceiling, and it begins at that location. So it starts at that location and it's 1 foot. Doesn't matter because I know I can change it once I've extruded it. I have handles to move it around. So when I say I'm done, if I look at this in the ceiling view there, what I'm wanting to do is just adjust the ends of my ceiling so that they are at these locations. One other thing in there might be if you pick that ceiling and you say edit the extrusion. Sorry, if you pick the ceiling, I haven't finished yet. That was the one form. I could go on to create other forms. In this case, I just need the ceiling material, so I'm okay with just that one form. And under here, material, I could actually go in and say, okay, I want the 2x2 acoustic tile or something like that, so it shows following the outline of that in my model. If I go back to my floor plan, level 2, and I say I'm done with the model in place. Back on my floor plan, I want to put a camera where I'm standing here looking that way through my building, and I would see my curved ceiling.